Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing the Watts family murders. At first it would seem like Chris and Shannan were any other couple in love. They met in 2010 and they married in 2012. As I say, they then had two beautiful baby girls, Celeste and Bella, and Shannan was also pregnant with her third child, Nico. Not long before the tragic murders occurred, Shannan had discussed with some of her friends, one friend in particular, some of the marital issues that her and Chris had recently been experiencing. He hadn't been very affectionate towards her, and I think she had begun to suspect that he was having an affair. In the months leading up to the murders, Shannan had thought something was wrong. Chris wasn't acting his usual self, he often wasn't at home, and not only that, he'd begun to be less affectionate towards her. She certainly started to think and imagine that he was having an affair. I don't think at the time she had any proof, but there are text messages that do show that she suspected something wasn't right within their marriage. Chris and Shannan both had full-time work. Shannan worked from home selling health products, which she was doing quite well at, and Chris worked for a local petroleum company. I do believe that in the lead up to the murders, they were having some financial troubles, and I do believe that they had recently gone bankrupt. Whether the financial troubles played into the problems in the marriage, I don't know, but there clearly were problems in the marriage, because it then turned out that Chris was having an affair with a woman that he worked with who went by the name of Nicole Kessinger. Shannan's work often meant that she had to go on business trips within the United States, and she would often fly abroad with her friend Nicole Atkinson. Nicole had dropped Shannan home at approximately 1:48 a.m. on the morning of August 13, 2018. At the time, the two daughters, Bella and Celeste, had been staying with Chris. It is believed that on this night, Shannan confronted Chris about her thoughts about his affair, and apparently he admitted it to her and said that the marriage was over. On the day of August 13th, Shannan had plans. She had a doctor's appointment, and not only that, she had a business meeting later in the day. She didn't turn up for the doctor's appointment, and after she doesn't turn up for the business meeting, her friend Nicole, who had dropped her home that night before, became increasingly concerned when she couldn't contact her on her mobile. Shannan was glued to her mobile. There is a lot of footage on the internet of films that she'd taken of her daughters and of her family and of Chris. She was very much into social media because of the work that she did selling the health products, and she was very much often on the internet. Friends said that she never took long to reply to messages, so once Nicole couldn't get hold of her, she became increasingly concerned for her welfare. After not being able to get hold of Shannan for quite some time, Nicole, her best friend, became more and more concerned for Shannan's welfare. She then goes to Shannan's house at around midday on the date of August 13th, 2018, and no one was home. She then calls Chris. Chris doesn't answer, so she ends up calling the police. Not long after the police arrive, Chris comes home from work. He seems visibly shaken up and is acting pretty shady, in my opinion. He doesn't seem to want to let the police in through the front door. He seems to want to go in through the garage. He seemed to want to check Shannan's car was there and if there was anything wrong with it. Surely if your wife and your children are missing, you'd want to rush into the house to make sure they hadn't had an accident and that everybody was okay. I found that really strange when I watched the footage. One other thing about this case, as you may be aware, there's a Netflix documentary. There is so much footage, CCTV footage of Chris on the day from the body cam from the police that they had on, that they would have been wearing when they were in the house. There's also so much footage of Chris having his police interviews, and all of the footage that Shannan had taken of the family in the lead up before her death makes it really, really tragic, because you can kind of picture it all because you can watch so much of it on video. Once in the house, the police conduct a thorough search and they cannot find Shannan. At this point, Nicole, her friend, is in the house. There is another gentleman who I believe may have been Nicole's partner, Chris, and the police officers. After a full search, they realise that Shannan's car is still there, her passport, other important documents, money, purse and mobile phone. I think her friend Nicole's face said it all when she realised that Shannan wasn't there, but that her mobile was. I think that was at the point her friend knew something was dreadfully wrong, And I think she also started to suspect Chris. One of the other major discoveries the police found when searching the Watts family home was that Shannan's wedding ring was on the bed. I think her friend Nicole, if she wasn't already worried for her best friend's welfare, must have really been shitting herself at this point and thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? My friend is missing, her children are missing, and her wedding ring is on the bed. Really strange. Don't really know how Chris explained himself with that one. Perhaps trying to claim that she'd left him. He did spout off some old crap during the interview with the police and the search of the home. It's just such a sad story, because at this point you know that the girls are dead and that Shannan's dead. A couple of things that he says in the CCTV are quite disturbing. When they realise her mobile is missing, he says, oh, that's her lifeline. Well, he already knew her lifeline had been cut. What a weird thing to say. If you haven't already seen the CCTV, or I believe it's body cam footage of Chris inside the Watts family home when the police are searching for Shannan and the girls, do watch it, because it is extremely interesting from a psychological point of view. The way he behaves is so shifty. He's fidgety, he's jumpy, he talks rubbish. He just seems to want to distract them. He's often looking at his phone. His wife and children are missing. What the hell is he doing on his phone? Was he sending texts to his friends? He doesn't seem to go off searching for her, which again is extremely weird. So his guilt was coming through all the way through that. I think the police already must have suspected him. And it's clear that Nicole, Shannan's best friend, definitely suspected him at that point. Over the next couple of days, Chris was interviewed by the police, but at this point, I don't know if he was a full suspect. So he was obviously thinking he'd gotten away with it at that point. He also, really weirdly, and it's really sinister, he also gave a number of TV interviews where he begged for his wife and children to come home. Again, watch these interviews if you haven't already, and listen carefully to what he says, because some of the things that he says, you can tell from what he says he already knows that they're dead. He knows they're not coming home. It's so disturbing. And also, when you know you've killed your wife and children, why the hell would you think it's okay to give a TV interview? Really weird. The only other thing I can think of, case similar, although it's not that similar, but there was a murder of 2 children in England, the Soham murders. Jessica and her friend were killed by a man called Ian Huntley. And very, very sadly, he thought it was all right to go on TV and give interviews, even though he knew where their dead bodies were, and he tried to pretend like he was searching with everybody else. So often killers seem to want attention and seek out TV interviews when they know they're the killer, and they're trying to make it look like they're a good citizen that actually cares. Sick. Eventually, Chris did crack during a police interview. He was given a polygraph test, which he failed, and he seemed quite horrified by. And I think at that point, he knew the game was up. His dad, I believe, I'm not sure about other family members, was already at the police station. He then asked the police if he could speak to his dad. Shockingly, there is footage of this conversation that he has with his dad. And at first, he tries to tell his dad that Shannan had already killed the girls after learning of his affair, and because of that he flew into a mad rage and killed Shannan. How disgusting. He led the general public and Shannan's family and his own family to believe that she'd killed the girls when really he'd killed them all along. Disgusting. I've got to say, I don't really have much sympathy for him, well, none for him or for his family really, although I know they didn't intend to bring up a murderer. His mum is pretty spooky, and the way she behaved in the court case, everything afterwards, it was as if she knows her son's a psychopath, but yet she doesn't mind. It's okay. He killed her granddaughters. Let's not worry about that. He killed his wife. Who cares? So his family are quite strange, and that may be why he's turned out to be so bloody strange himself. But what is really sad is to see the way his dad reacts. His dad's eyes when he finds out his 2 grandchildren and his daughter-in-law and his soon-to-be new baby grandson are all dead. His eyes widen, and it is so disturbing to watch. Had his son told him the truth that he'd actually murdered them and not Shannan, perhaps he would have been even more shocked. So the game is up. He finally admits to his dad that he's done it. The police obviously watch this taking place, and they then know that he's killed his wife and his 2 children and his unborn baby son. He then takes a little while to finally admit to where they are buried, or where he's gotten rid of their bodies. Tragically, he'd taken their bodies to a petroleum site where he worked. He'd buried Shannan in a shallow grave. And extremely sadly, I believe he strangled all 3 of them, and the 2 daughters, shockingly, I hope they were already passed away by this point, he froze their dead bodies into 2 oil tanks. I cannot imagine what a difficult time the police in America and the fire brigade and the ambulance services, the emergency services, must have had dealing with this case. It must have been horrific to find those girls in that state in the water tanks, and to find Shannan in a shallow grave knowing that she was pregnant. I believe it took at least 3 days to know where the bodies were for Chris to finally fess up, and for them to be recovered. How awful for Shannan's family, for her mum, dad and brother, to know what had happened to them and the tragic way that they'd been murdered. Because Chris had admitted to this, in America, quite a lot of the states have the death penalty. We don't have it here in England, and we haven't had it for a long time. So to us Brits, it is quite shocking that you guys still have it over there. But obviously that's your law, your decision. But because of where he lived in Colorado, he would have been facing the death penalty. But Shannan's family, which was very kind of them, really, didn't want him to have the death penalty. They'd already seen too much death, the death of their 2 beloved granddaughters, and the death of Shannan and her unborn baby Nico, their unborn grandson. They saved him from the death penalty and said that they didn't want to enforce that upon him. He was then sentenced to 5 life sentences, 3 consecutive and 2 concurrent, without the possibility of parole. One thing I can say about America's justice system is you guys have got it on smash. Someone here commits a murder, they're out in 10 years, then they commit another murder. If someone commits murders in your country, quite often they get 70 years in prison. I really, really do wish our justice system was a bit more like America's, and that we were a lot harder on murderers, and life should mean life. By this point, the police obviously know that he's done it, he's admitted to it, but they obviously want to know why. They start searching through his computer records, his phone records, and they discover he'd been having an affair for quite a few months with a woman that he worked with called Nichol Kessinger. Nicole admitted to the affair, but she told the police in a police interview she didn't think he was with his wife anymore. She certainly didn't know the wife was pregnant, and she believed that they were together as boyfriend and girlfriend, although it was quite casual, and that he was no longer with his wife. I don't buy that. I think Nicole did know that he was still with his wife, and I actually do think, and there's quite a lot of backup evidence of this on the internet, that Nicole had something to do with it. I really wouldn't be surprised if she told him to do it, encouraged him to do it, and not only that, he was the only man she was known to be seeing. She had been looking at wedding dresses on the internet, so considering it was only meant to be a few month casual fling, why on earth was she looking at wedding dresses unless she just liked looking at wedding dresses? I'm pretty sure she liked Chris a lot more than she let on, and she didn't want the police to know that in case she was implicated in the crime. Nicole wasn't ever arrested in regards to the deaths. They didn't ever prove that she had anything to do with it, but there's something that she said that was extremely disturbing was, "I don't think there is a logical explanation for what he did," she told a local newspaper in America. "It's a senseless act and it's horrific." Now, all that sounds to me is just words. That doesn't sound very empathetic. You know, 2 little girls were murdered. They were strangled and thrown in an oil tank. A pregnant woman was strangled and buried in a shallow grave. How can Nicole Kessinger think, you know, there's no logical explanation? Well, no, there's no logical explanation. Most people don't kill their wives and children. And also, if they're having an affair with someone and they don't want to be with their wife anymore, they normally leave her. Or they just continue being with her and not hope she doesn't find out about the affair. They don't tend to finish them all off. So I definitely think she had something to do with it. I think she may have encouraged him. And as I said, if you look into this onto the internet, guys, there's definitely a lot of backup for that. I believe, as I said, she wasn't charged, but I think she now goes under a new identity and had to move away from the local area. And who can really blame her for wanting to do that, as I imagine she probably got a lot of abuse after this had all happened. And to be honest, she probably deserved some of it. This really is one of the most sinister, but from a true crime point of view, interesting cases that I've come across in quite some time. We do occasionally in England come across people that do kill their families, but the way this was carried out and the way that Chris lied to the police and then wanted to give police interviews begging for his family to be returned to him because he loved them all when he knew they were all dead. That is what makes this case extremely sad. And not only that, the level of footage that Shannan had taken of her family, you can look back and almost the woman comes back to life. The Netflix documentary was excellent and I really enjoyed it. And I've really enjoyed watching a lot of other true crimers videos on this particular case on YouTube recently. I don't ever mean any harm by my videos. I like to put out information. I hope people find them informative. But what I do want to say is my heart goes out to Shannan's family, her mum, her dad and her brother. I watched the court case, what I could in my country in England, and it was horrific. The emotion that they must have gone through, knowing that their daughter, their sister, their nieces and their granddaughters were murdered in such a horrific way. It must be so hard to deal with, and my heart really does go out to them. Anyway, guys, that's another video from Colette with Cold Cases at Colette. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying my other content that I'm putting out. This is quite a new channel, so this is all new. If you think I'm doing anything wrong, or I could be doing anything better, or there's anything you like that I'm doing, put it in the comments. I'd love to know your comments on the Watts case, and especially I'd love to know whether you think Nicole did have anything to do with the murders. That's the point that I'd like to discuss most in the comments. Like and subscribe, as I always say, and if you know any other people that love true crime, pass them onto my channel and hopefully they can like and subscribe, and then you'll all know when I'm next going to have a video out. Anyway, guys, I hope you're all taking care of yourselves and staying safe in these stressful times. We're still in a lockdown in the UK and I've no idea when it's going to end. It's February now, so hopefully maybe by April or May we might be free to live our lives again. Anyway, this has been a really sad case to look into, and as I say, my heart goes out to Shannan's family. Anyway, guys, I'm going to be off now, so I will see you all soon. Bye for now.